I believe we are live. This hangout is on air. So, welcome, guys. We are going to just jump right in here today. It's our first time doing this so far. We've had a few technical difficulties, wouldn't you say, Bill?
It's a start, but I think we're gonna go from the live from the studio from now on, probably. Literally.
Well, you figured out how to add a lower third graphic to your name before I even figured out how to get my connection here. So
don't forget to go pro. We should just go to the studio and sit around the table and just have the conversation all in the same room but from different computers.
Right? No. Well, yeah. We do it at the conference table, and it'll be we all are sitting facing each other. And then we just decorate the rooms differently behind us. That'd be fun.
Yeah, we can just pop in and out of each other's cameras and freak the hell out of people.
Yeah, just like on CNN when Nancy Grace was, I believe, talking, and another reporter was across the parking lot from her, and they were talking to each other over live air, acting like they were in totally different places, but they were actually like right across the parking lot from each other.
The funniest part about that when that happened, in fact, I guess that could go into our topic tonight, so I'm going to maybe bring that up again later because I want to talk about that and how they what happened to bust that whole thing. It was really funny.
It was a bus that went through the background, I think.
Yeah, and you saw it go from one frame into the other frame. It was bad. Okay. So we do have a little schedule here. We are going to talk tonight about, first we'll get into this discussion is us kind of going on our own political rant to discuss things of social import related to politics and related to, tonight's topic, the part one will be about the TPP. If you don't know what the Trans-Pacific Partnership is, you are going to enjoy learning about this because it's something that everyone should know about. And then we're going to have a short intermission where we're going to talk about something good because this stuff can be a little overwhelming sometimes and how negative it is. And we want to stay positive. And then on part two, we're going to actually, I got this backwards. Let's just run with it. On part two, we're going to talk about why we're doing this and kind of the state of the news, which I find to be a really appropriate play on words, and we'll get into.
We don't have to stick to what's written down in a Google document. You know, we can do whatever the hell we want. We can start the way that you want to in your mind. I don't think that's going to throw anybody off.
No, I definitely don't think so. We're not constrained by Google Docs or Google Hangouts, right?
Right.
So just real quick, I'd like to introduce you guys. This is Kayleigh Hutchinson. Sorry, Hutchings. How do I say your last name?
Whatever works.
Whatever shit comes out of your mouth. That's who I am. Yeah. Names aren't important.
Kayleigh Hutchings.
Why, from your perspective, why are you wanting to be a part of this, and why? Tell us briefly a little bit about yourself and what you're doing here.
Well, I grew up in a small town, and I went to film school right after high school graduation, and kind of learned about the world through studying the arts, and wanted to be a big filmmaker and all that stuff. And I found myself very quickly and getting in a situation where I was spending a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of focus creating and doing really cool things that did nothing for anyone. They had no purpose behind them. They were fun. We had a great time, and it always turned out really cool and looked cool. But you're talking about endless nights, no sleep, poor health in the process, and it never benefited anybody except for our own egos. And so I think that something like this is good to dedicate our time to discuss things that are important, and get it out there. We have the tools in front of us. We might as well be doing it.
Fantastic. And next up, I'd like to introduce Bill. Bill McCarthy. The three of us have been filmmaker friends here and worked on a few different projects off and on. And when we talked about this, it didn't take very long, and Bill was like, I'm in. Like, yes, I want to do this. So, Bill, introduce yourself a little bit and tell us why you're here.
I'm Bill. I've been Bill McCarthy. Been making films for 9 years now, basically since I was 16. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I've made any blockbuster movies. That means that I've just worked in the film and production industry in all sorts of capacities, from a grip. I can't PA. I don't know how to get coffee orders right. But from a grip to a producer. And that is kind of crazy when you think about it. So that's about it. I think that what we're doing and what we're trying to do is cool, and let's get to it.
Bill's a badass. That's the only important thing that that's all it is. I'm a badass. And
if you want to make a movie, give me a call.
Yeah, and I must say both of these people, Kayleigh is a very talented cinematographer, and she can do wonders with her camera and her work. You should check it out. We'll probably put the websites in the show notes. By the way, we are going to have show notes, but my name is Matthew Armstrong, and the three of us have gotten together because we're passionate about video production from both a professional standpoint. We've worked together on commercial shoots. Me and Bill were recently in Pensacola shooting some spots for a TV ad there.
Yes, we were.
Kayleigh's been all over the U.S. shooting stuff, and we connected, and then as we started talking about what really matters to us, it's like, hey, there's actually more here than just us talking about film. So that's not what we're here to talk about, although that will be coming in the future. I've been, shooting and making films since I was like 15 and could steal my mom's camera because she didn't trust me with it, and so I just, when they were out of town, make little films. And I hope one day to, we're going to make some stuff that deeply impacts people, and in some degree we already are in our own way. But tonight we are really, really excited because we're taking a new step. And later, I think some people are going to come back to this video because hopefully, if you end up watching this video, it's most likely because you came back in the past to see where this thing started. And we just started. We don't have it figured out. We don't even know really where we're going. We have about this much that we have, we're like, okay, that's all it takes. We can move forward with that much, and let's see where this thing grows and what it becomes. So, yeah. Should we go ahead and move on to talking about the TPP?
Well, let's do the news.
We're going to do the news first. Why are we doing this? Are we doing the TPP first?
Okay, do the news. Why are we doing this? And no, that's actually the way it was intended. So, for us to talk about that, the state of the news. So, Kayleigh, when we think about the mainstream media, when we think about the news, why is it important that people would actually start speaking up and talking out right now? I mean, do you feel like we're getting the information we need? Do you feel like the news is a trustworthy source for information? I mean, what would you say about that?
The mainstream news can't be a trustworthy source, and it's the base of it all, and it's a fact. It's not an opinion. It's a fact. The news stations are eventually divided into 4 groups, and those 4 groups are owned by somebody, or they're owned by 4 hedge fund or whoever. Everything comes together at one point, and so you have like Fox, which is going to battle another news station, which I think NBC and Fox are owned by 2 separate companies, but Fox is owned, I think CNN. Aren't CNN? Who owns CNN? Does anyone know who owns CNN?
Turner?
We should look that up.
Who
owns CNN?
Bill, your mic's muted, by the way. Okay.
I'm aware. I was vlogging.
Turner, yes, Turner. Okay, cool. So, you know, one of the first things they were found out about, about broadcasting, nudes, live nudes, is those, a lot of the content that gets fed through there. They do have live reporters that do go out, but a lot of it just gets sent in, and you don't know exactly sometimes where it's sent in from. They just have people that go out, and their job is to send in stuff. There is kind of blank spots in where media is streamed in and reaches the public. And the thing is, it's not in the best interest of the news to keep things as they should be presented. They're worrying about viewers, and they're worrying about making sure that revenue streams are coming in the right areas, because the people who own Fox are going to own, they're going to own certain brands. They're going to have investments in certain other stocks that exist, and they're not going to want to broadcast or send out anything that's going to make any of that plummet. And so you can't trust what you see because it's biased. It's all biased, and it's you can see it. If you watch one news station and then you see another and you compare the two, you can see how there's a difference. And it's the same story.
Yeah, I've come to think that their role is not, well, the role isn't actually to give us accurate information. It's to create audiences, right? And like, the interesting thing to me is that most people don't stop to think about this, right? Like, if you're Coca-Cola, who's your customer, right? Your customer is the people that pay to drink Coke, right?
It's America.
If you're Nike, your customer is what? The person ultimately that's going to buy your shoe. Well, who's the customer for news media? And you would think off the bat, when you ask who's the customer, who you're servicing, it would be the people, but no, it's not. Their customer isn't us. Their customer is the advertisers, right? And not only is the customer the advertisers, but there's also the connection to the state, because they want access. And the combination of those two, it seems to me like, you're basically being entertained so that we can drive the most attention, get the most viewers, and that viewership it equates into higher dollars because of the sale of the advertising, right? Which is pretty much exactly what you were just pointing out. So I don't think they're there to inform us. Well, we know they're not there to inform us. It's their underlying motive is to
entertain right now.
Yeah.
It's absolutely entertainment. It's gone from, okay, what's happening that's important, that you should know, that should inform you about how you should vote or how you should see the world. It's turned into, oh my gosh, did you see that today? Really? They said that? I mean, it's getting nasty, actually. I mean, just looking right now, CNN's app. The first thing when you open up the CNN app, when you first install it, is it asks you, and this is for real, it asks you if you would like it to play the audio, "This is CNN," every time you open the app. This is CNN. Anyway, first topic is online writings on guns linked to shooter's mom. That has nothing to do with the story that they're talking about. Doesn't tell me where they're talking about, what shooter, nothing. It's just guns and online and writing. Oh my gosh, and there's a mother involved. I must look at this.
So I just pulled this up to see what stations Turner owns, and this is so I can actually verbalize what I was trying to say correctly earlier. So Turner owns CNN, HLN, TNT, TBS, Cartoon Network, Turner Classic Movies, Adult Swim, True TV, and Turner Sports. And I'm pretty sure there's a whole other list of things that come down from there as well, but those are the main ones. So, I know at least right off the bat, looking at that, there's subtleties and the way things are reported, the way that someone presents something. It's the adjectives that they use, it's the assumptions that they make, the morality that they put behind what it is they choose. And CNN is kind of always been more of that. They've prided themselves. I guess I wouldn't say it's more liberal, but it's supposed to be one of the most trustworthy news sources. Like, it's supposed to be really honest. It's not supposed to be biased. It's supposed to be very international, and it's supposed to be something that's like better than Fox. And it's because it's a competitor of Fox, so it has to be that way. But also, there is an interesting process. People who watch Fox are typically not Adult Swim viewers, They're not watching Cartoon Network, and it's cartoon. And Adult Swim is a part of Cartoon Network. So I think that it's just an interesting note that like the stations they have similar audiences, and they do that on purpose. So the way that something is presented to you, just like when you're watching a television show, you're watching an animation, you're being entertained with a movie, like it has a target audience, and they do the same damn thing with broadcasting. It's the same thing.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I'm a little bit disappointed that I'm having to do this through the phone, because right now, and we will include it in the show notes after the show, and I can get this straightened out. There's a graphic I wanted to share with you guys that basically shows that it's either 4 or 5 companies that own all the news. I'm talking all the news. I'm talking from newspapers to online, Huffington Post to, of course, Fox and CNN. All of them go back to just 4 or 5 companies, and there's an infographic. It's 4.
I'm pretty sure it's just 4. It's just all the news stations, like you said, like all the newspapers, everything goes back into 4 companies, and those 4 companies, they don't just own the news. Like, if you trace everything back, everything is owned by someone. So it's like how, like, I think Coca-Cola and Pepsi are owned by the same company, and they own Doritos and things like that. So like and there's a documentary about it that's like the illusion of choice. It's the same thing with all of our entertainment, and it's with brands too. So people who own brands are also owning news stations. Like, there's a lot of ties to a lot of things that shouldn't be connected together.
Let's make sure we include that link to those companies. I think it's like Time Warner, Viacom, Turner, and I don't know the rest of them. But
Matthew, do you remember the other day at the studio when I walked in and I was upset that I was reading an article about an active shooter, and in the middle of the article, like not even 2 or 3 paragraphs into it, was an ad for Game of Thrones on HBO. It's like, okay, people are dying, but I've got to watch Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch Game of Thrones. I think that's disgusting. I think the fact that there's advertisements in the middle of a written article, and now that particular shooting may or may not be one. That's a whole different tangent we can talk about. But even whatever's happening, I don't think it's appropriate to put an ad for premium cable in the middle of an article about people getting shot. And that's disgusting.
Let me ask you guys something. We've got, on the one hand, we could talk all day on the
Time Warner Cable owns Turner. Sorry. Anyways.
Oh, well, that just narrows it down.
I swear to God, these trails go back. I'm sorry I didn't mean to interrupt, but like that's.
Oh, it is crazy, and we want to encourage people, all of you out there, like we're saying, like, we're on this journey figuring this stuff out. You need to get on it too, because when you start getting into this, you start realizing the power of your own research and the fact that you actually can know something, you can figure stuff out, you are capable, and you have the access and the tools if you just want to spend a little bit of time. Like, it's really almost enthralling when you actually see how all this comes together. So, I just wanted to say, though, like, I want to turn it a little bit with the rest of the time before we go to the next section to talk about how this, some people, they may not have the biggest issue with the idea that they're a business, They may not take the biggest issue with the fact that, they're there to make money and they're there to sell advertising, whatever. But what I want to say is, even if you're okay with all that, what do we do with the fact that the news media has become complicit? They have become part of the problem. They've become the propaganda piece for so much that is wrong in the world. So you take, for example, when you look at what happened with something everyone is familiar with, like the Iraq War, the lead up to that war, how it was sold to us through the news, how the softball questions were given to the government, how they brought on military analysts and let them give us complete garbage, including 3D mock-ups of supposed mobile labs that were in Iraq and all this stuff. And they did this full production, all the way sending Colin Powell to the UN. The news media lapped it up, tried to help sell us the war that they had been doing for years. And then when it comes out, when the truth comes out, on the front page, do we get to see that? Is that what the American people are being? Is the news media telling the American people, guys, we need to change this thing because you've just been sold a bill of goods that you've been lied to? No, they help cover it up. So whether you're talking about the bailouts, which is one of the most absolute travesties in our history, that the most richest people in this country, taxpayers, me and you, they literally took the money from us and are giving it to these folks. And instead of them having to pay for their crimes, like they got promoted for their crimes, and they were celebrated in the news media. And so I'm like, how does anyone, Kayleigh, Bill, I got to ask you, how does anyone who sees this information, who sees what's going on, I mean, this is the stuff that's public, not the stuff we don't know, the stuff we do know, how can anyone still trust the news? How can anyone still believe a word they say?
It's difficult to swallow, I think, for a lot of people, because it's what we do. Going back to how we all have experience with film, and I think that it makes it easier for us to swallow. Is that it's a tool. It's a tool of manipulation. You can make someone believe anything you want just by creating a series of images and edits. And I don't think anyone wants to believe that shit like that actually happens. They hear it and they can know it, but they don't really want to believe it, And because it's difficult to believe, especially when you don't really understand what's going on behind the scenes, And a lot of people have that assumption that if it was actually happening, and this is actually happening, and so much the news isn't real, that it's staged, or that there's an agenda behind, what's being broadcasted, that it would have been shown already. It would have been already called out for what it is, and somehow or another the news would report itself and would call itself out, and it's not going to happen. And it's not in the interest of the people who own it. It's not in the interest of the people who are paid, to be a part of it. It's not in anyone's interest, and they use it, and they always have used it in order to, especially politically, get what they want. And it goes into the home, it goes into the house, because it gives you a perspective of what's going on in the world around you. I thought about this, it's funny, if you go to your television set and you turn on the news and you watch it, and you see all this violent, horrific shit, and it's always someone shot somebody, there's this natural disaster happening here, and it's like the end of the fucking world on your television screen, or on your computer, or wherever you're watching the news, and then you walk out of your front door and it's a nice, sunny, pretty day. There's nothing blowing up, there's something horrific happening, but it has that connotation to it, and I think that it keeps people in a certain mindset, it keeps people in a certain submission, and it makes them kind of just keep going with where they are because they're scared to step out of that box.
Well, and there's another thing on that is that with the ability for anyone anywhere to take their phone and essentially become a reporter, the world is getting much smaller. And I actually had a conversation about this the other day. I was going through shooting, all sorts of bad things, ISIS, all these things, and I was like, wow, what is going on with the world? Car chases, 4 car chases in one day. It's like, wow, this is crazy. And my friend said, no, this is it's not more things are happening. It's just you're able to know about it now. You are able to hear about everything now, and since
I'm not sure about that, but
I do think that, though. I mean, it used to be you had 3 local stations within, a 500-mile radius. Well, now there's everyone can contribute, and that local station can go off on a tangent. I mean, I've reported stories to CBS via Twitter before, and they pick it up and they'll talk about it. And it's one of those things. They're like, "Oh shit, we didn't hear that yet. Thanks," and then they go out and they find out more about it. But I do think that it's the world is getting a little smaller when it comes to we can see what's happening anywhere right now, and see, but then again, a lot of them are all reporting the same stuff. So
I would just add, I think part of what you're saying there is really good and powerful, and I think it's part of what the solution is moving forward. That as the world does get smaller in the sense of how we are connected, and that you have in your hands when you make a telephone call, you have a recording device, you have a camera, you have a video. I'm sorry, you have something that can capture what's going on where you're at, and that's really positive for alternative media. And the mainstream media is, the way I see them using it is honestly, it's kind of disgusting, because it's a lot easier to manipulate social media, right? So on the same front, while there is really important stuff going on that's still not being reported, even though we have that access, like, you can find out about way more than ever before. You would think that in the main news they would be taking advantage of that if they were, actually there to report and inform the public. But instead what's happening, they're using that same power to divert people's attention, to make new memes and make new themes and things that will take fire in social media to distract us away from something that might be really important going on. And a perfect example of that would be, as just one example, and before we wrap this section here, is when they passed the National Defense Authorization Act. All the news media failed to inform us with just how grave this was, and there's so many aspects of it. But it basically, a couple of the main ones, there's many different things to point out, but the 2 things I want to point out are, one, it actually legalized the assassination of American citizens without a trial on our own soil, with nothing more than the word of the president, okay? We've actually invaded countries because supposedly they were doing that to their people. Doesn't make sense, right?
What bill, or what were you saying happened?
It's the NDAA is how most people refer to it. NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act.
Okay.
And one of the other things that was in that bill, I couldn't believe it. When that happened, it wasn't too long after that, I was with some protesters because of the George Bush Presidential Library came here to Dallas. And
George Bush Library, Texas.
We were protesting it, and I was talking to people, I'm like, how crazy is it, guys, that here we are actually to the place in our country where we have politicians that can openly talk about the assassination of our own citizens without due process, without a jury, without even having to show that they did anything wrong. That's crazy. That's everything that America stood for, supposedly, right? These liberties, these freedoms, the Bill of Rights, the things that make us great. We're losing in the face of supposedly, the war on terror and all this stuff. And the second part of that NDAA that I wanted to point out is that they actually repealed, in that act, they repealed the legal protections of American citizens from the United States government using propaganda against us. They legalized the ability for the United States government to actually create news, give it to news media, and pass it off as real news. And I believe we've probably been seeing a lot more of that than we even know about, because I don't know what it is. You have to try to figure it out. But, that's where we're at.
And just to take what you just said, what Bill was saying earlier, because it's my last little statement on all this. That's propaganda. You know. Okay, so to start with, everyone can report from anywhere, and we have so much technology, and we're all connected. We're all one. We're one global mind now. And in many ways, it's causing an issue. It has been causing an issue for our government and for other powers that be, because they want to limit the internet. They want to control it, you know. And so you see it all the time. You see people, and they have their own YouTube videos. They have their own little reporting, you know, like stories that they show, like their own cop videos. That's a big one that's going around, you know. And you see it, and they put it out there, but no one wants to pay attention. Like, it's there, and people know it's there, and they talk about it, but so many people do regard it as, like, oh, that's just a fucking idiot, like, posting their crap. They're the ones, like, they disregard because they're not professional. Oh, they're not professional. It doesn't matter what they put on there because they don't have a clue what they're doing, or whatever their justification is. For whatever reason, people naturally disregard, like, these videos, and people who do see them, they question. They're like, well, because you know, there is always, you know, a personal agenda that's behind things that are put out there. People who experience, you know, a hate crime and post things about that hate crime are going to be biased towards how they feel about the hate crime, whether it's right or wrong. They have their intention of putting it out there. But anyways, that's a whole other thing. So getting to what you're talking about with, you know, with propaganda, that people need to think more whenever they read or they see something. It's the intention of words. It's the types of words they use to describe something, and it can sound so awesome and great, and you want to just buy all into it when you first hear about it, by the way that they're saying it. But what are they really saying? You know, they're choosing their words very carefully, and how they describe something is what paints the story. And
oh, it's a script.
It is, right. There's thought behind it, you know. You have to think behind just the words. You can't just take it for face value, you know. That's how you make propaganda.
One of those things about that, make propaganda right there, you know, something that I've been a part of right now is the Sandy Hook elementary school shooting, and one of the arguments that I've had was, well, there's no way they could fake that. And I was like, dude, I'm a filmmaker. They made this thing on a couple of dashboard cameras and some news cameras. That's easy to do. You know, I mean, if you look at it from a film producer's standpoint, that's a day of production that you just knock out like that. But you spend 6 months putting it together. You hire all your actors and you have them all play their part. That's it. So, you know, making propaganda right there. Make it.
If we can do it, and we're broke as shit, people who are rich as shit
can do it easy.
Wow. Wow, well said. And I would say that for all of you who don't know maybe what Bill's referring to, we don't know. The case isn't closed.
Case is not closed, definitely. Right now there's just a matter of, okay, if you look at this day a couple years ago is a little funny. And if you look deeper, it gets even more funny. And you can't go accusing these people of lying because you're going to get in a lot of trouble. And that's kind of where it's full circle.
I just want people to know that that's maybe something we'll probably come back to, and enough to say this is that there is definitely enough there that once you start peeling back the layers, oh my gosh, that whole thing is unraveled. Not that you're going to figure out what it is. Anybody who thinks they know exactly how everything happened, I think it's, you know, but what we want to deal with is in facts, and the facts are definitely intriguing. So let's go ahead and move on for a minute. I think we'll save the something good for right near the end, so we'll actually end on the best note. So let's talk a little bit about the TPP. Now, Bill, when I brought this up to you, I think it's good that we're just like all ordinary people here, right? So had you guys ever heard about this?
You know, I knew something like this was going on, that it existed. I've been checking the news more since, like, I've been pregnant, because I haven't been able to do anything else but sit on my butt and check the news. So I've been, like, checking the news, and well, I'm breastfeeding and check the news, and I haven't heard anything about this recently. It's all been about the campaign. and about shootings and other things, you know. So I haven't heard anything about the TPP. Either it slipped right by me in one day in the past year, or they haven't reported on it.
Well, they're not talking about it. The Times talks about it. New York Times, other business, main business outlets, they talk about it. But the major people, Fox regular, CNN regular, MSNBC, they don't talk about it.
Yeah.
And you're generally not going to see any video or live studio productions about it. You're going to see articles about it, and they're going to be very vague articles. I'm looking at one right now, and I still don't understand what this thing really is. So.
I did a video, I'm going to include it in the show notes, that I think is a good primer to the topic. I tried to make it a little over the top on purpose to draw people into the content, and it's called, what is the TPP? We'll include that in there. But in short, I will say the reason why we're going to talk about this is part of our segment is to talk about what's going on right now, news. And right now, it was just reported yesterday that the Trans-Pacific Partnership reached they finalized their agreement. And what is this thing?
It's
and why
not
does
the
it matter?
Trans-Pacific Partnership, just in case you're Pacific. So just to be sure, that includes 12 Pacific Rim nations. That's why
Trans-Pacific Partnership. No, it's a big deal. This is literally the largest trade deal in history. There's never been anything done like this before, and it actually is part of a network of 3 different agreements that encompass the entire globe. The Trans-Pacific Partnership is one of them, and the link that we'll include in the show notes to the Wikileaks video goes over not only the TPP, but it kind of gives you the broader context of how this is one agreement with 2 others that is basically solidifying America's ability to control the global economy for the next. I mean, these are permanent changes, and it's not much about trade when you compare all the things that it's doing. now, for some of you, it's like,
how does it affect me, Matt?
How's that going to affect me? What's the deal? It's a trade deal. So what? Well, here's the deal. First of all, it's bad when you have the biggest corporations in the world sitting down in a secret meeting with governments of 11 nations governments, including Japan and Australia, and there's the whole list. You can find that out for yourself, India and so on. Secretly with governments where the public is purposely left out. We are not allowed to know what the deal is. We are not allowed to know. It's completely secret to the point where even the Congress, our own elected officials who actually get to view the document, have to view it in a room where they're literally watched. They're not allowed to take notes, and they are placed under a strict gag order where they cannot talk about the details that they learned. Now, that's not fishy.
That's not
fishy.
not the point of Congress, Matt.
So it turns out that what's at stake here is so much. You could dedicate many hours to it because we don't even really know. This is one of the things that's really sad. The only reason we know anything about the details in this agreement are because of leaks that have come out. So we have really, really basic, we're asking some really basic questions like, let everyone see what the hell is in this agreement before you try to put it on us. And right now, President Obama has gone into full swing mode behind the scenes to try to start manipulating and moving things around so that Congress is going to be okay and not ask questions and just go along with this thing. They're pitching this as, this is, of course, good for business, it's good for America, it's good for American trade. Meanwhile, what they're not talking about is the parts that we've seen. It's extended the ability for Big Pharma to extend its patents in other nations in ways that are unprecedented. They've never been able to do. It also gives the ability for companies to sue an entire nation based on supposed lost profits for any laws that were passed. Now, you've got to understand how radical that is. We are talking about the merger of global governance and big corporations in a way that we've never seen, and it's already happened. You have countries that pass laws, for example, against cigarettes. I think Australia had happened, in another country too. I don't want to misspeak here, but you can learn those details really easy. And these companies sued the government and actually were awarded for profits that were lost based on the laws that the people passed. So this is insane. It's a corporate tyranny that's got its hands, it's really in government tyranny. And you've got other things like the fact that local right now there's a huge movement to grow local food, right? That is a good thing. It's really part of the solution. Well, under the TPP, that would become so much more difficult because any cities that actually put laws on the books that actually encouraged local growing or organic or anything like that, which we, by the way, in our little towns, that's where we can actually make the most political change, right? So
well, there's my question for you right there. How can a Pacific Partnership govern my city or my state's decisions to do anything? And this is something that I have to ask because we're in Texas and we like to do things our own way. So, how can anything tell us that we can't grow food where we want to? That's my question.
Well, since we aren't, Kayleigh, will you tell him real quick as an example, even though it's a little different, but it really is a good example of what just happened in Denton with the local city being overturned by the state?
Okay, yeah, oh geez, yeah. Well, I actually have two examples of things that are happening in Texas. But yeah, so fracking. The city of Denton met. They got together in the city council, and all the people came, and the city voted. Like there was a whole thing that happened, and it was voted no, that fracking was not going to happen in the city of Denton. And then the companies wanted to frack, and so someone got paid out and said, okay, never mind, you can frack. Like they literally went through. And
it wasn't even that they had really specific things like you can't do it within 20 feet of a house or something like that. I mean,
20 feet's not that far.
They wanted it's the whole everything with fracking was bad. There's so many just ugly pieces. We could talk for this entire time on this. You can't. They want to do it close to schools. They want to do it close to houses and homes where in like local businesses, and like it's not okay. We have fault lines coming up and through Texas does not have earthquakes, and it's been having fucking earthquakes. Like it does not have earthquakes. It is not on a fault line, and now it is. We created a fucking fault line because we're drilling for gas, and it's insane. And so people got together and were like, no, we are not having this. And they protested and they voted against it, and they're like, I don't want this to happen. And the city council there got together and said, okay, we hear you, we're not going to do it. And then they changed their mind, and people were pissed. And then people protested and they arrested them and put them in jail. So you have citizens getting thrown in jail for trying to keep their local government accountable for the decisions they made, because they're going through due process, and due process isn't working anymore. It doesn't work.
Okay, on that one example, I'll just cut in to say this, and then you can move on to your other example. What happened there that is really important
is the governor.
They did pass the laws, and it got overturned by the state legislature.
Yep. So pending new state law and pending lawsuits.
Right. So what's interesting is, even though the people did do that, you have now the state whose interests are they serving? Not ours. They're serving big corporations, and they said you're not allowed to do that. And the craziest thing is, what they said doesn't even make sense. But the point is, and we can move on from this, but it's one example to show, Bill, that yes, when the government makes these agreements, they've already set a precedent, and it is new, so it's going to be weird how it all shakes out. But this precedence of saying, because we have these other agreements, we're going to invalidate your local laws and make them invalid.
That's really interesting because when I was reading into it, they didn't state it as the state had overturned the decision. I knew the state was involved, but that's not how they presented it. They presented it as it was still a local issue, and that's where a lot of the protests and stuff, people were pissed. They were still attacking their local government, and not the state government, because that's what they felt what the problem was. So it's really interesting because they're not even really being very transparent on that either, which isn't surprising. So you were just talking about, you mentioned about how the big movement to grow locally, and I don't know if either of y'all heard about this, but in Arlington or outside Arlington, somewhere west towards the west DFW side, there's the Garden of Eden. It's an eco community. They were raided a couple of years ago, and SWAT teams came in and took everyone by gunpoint. And their warrant was for drug trafficking, and there were no drugs. They didn't even find a doobie. Like, they found not even like a gram of marijuana. Like, they found nothing. All these people were doing were out there growing food and just living off the land, and they had started doing videos, like online videos, to show people how they could grow their own food and how they could live sustainably. And then out of nowhere, like, they had been there for years, and out of nowhere, after they became like visible, and I guess people became more aware of it, or the local police became aware of it, they decided they were going to come raid them after they've been doing this for, I think, 3 or 4 years. And so they came in and they just took everyone by gunpoint, and they arrested I guess the main guy who kind of helps run the show there, and they arrested him for an unpaid traffic ticket and put him in jail, and that was all they could do. They didn't do anything, but they destroyed a lot of their property. They destroyed plants. They ruined their okra, just random shit. They just came in and just violated all of their crap because they know that.
Will you make sure
they don't want it to be going on. They don't like it.
Make sure we get the link to that to add to the show notes, if you don't mind, when we're done. That was one of many stories like that where, I mean, it's just gotten ridiculous. I mean,
it's illegal to do it in Florida.
Yeah.
It's illegal,
grow food in Florida?
It's illegal to live off the grid in Florida. Like, you have to be hooked up to a water and electric line in the state of Florida. You can't just go live. You can't just go live off the grid. You have to be hooked up to something.
You can't have your own well and have solar power and stuff without being connected, and that's And I think the whole move of why you see coming back to the TPP now. So we have the fact that not only is it empowering big pharma, it's empowering these companies to be able to literally take money from the people and sue countries off of claims of lost profits because of laws that we want to pass. And then you have the fact that they want to censor the internet in a way it's never been done before, including, you remember all that crap that came up about the the way that I don't remember what they're called, but the DM something with the how they would lock down music with the encryption files and stuff. I don't remember what it's called now. I sound like an idiot. But anyway, there's they want to basically follow that same hyper encrypted models where everything on the internet could be locked down like that, as well as start charging people for internet speeds and stuff. I mean, it's insane, right? And so the bottom line is people do need to know about it. We need to speak up and speak out, because right now you're not going to get coverage. The coverage you're going to see on the media, we can all predict it, right? We can predict it. What are we going to see? We'll see. They're going to cover that, some people have a problem with this, but they're going to show how this is good for America, and I guess the last place I want to see if we could round up is to talk about how this is a perfect example of how we have to break out of this false paradigm of Republican versus Democrat, left versus right, where we're supposed to fit in some label that's already been defined by the government for you to fit into, okay? And the reality is the TPP is a perfect example. President Obama is supposed to be the kind of person, here comes the darkness.
There's the darkness.
I didn't notice it for a while. It scared the shit out of me.
But you have,
there comes the darkness.
President Obama, right? Like if you fall into the whole left-right charade, like, you know, the left is more big government, social programs against big business, okay? The right is pretty much the opposite. They're supposed to be small government, they're pro-business, blah, blah, blah. Now here you have a democratically elected president who was elected on a ticket that said that he was very much against Wall Street and the big business, and here he was the one actually championing and pushing through what was called fast track of the TPP, which was basically, not only was he saying we want the TPP, which, by the way, guys, if you haven't figured out, it's like a big business wet dream. You can't imagine how fucking amazing this deal is for the largest corporations in the world, okay? President Obama was saying, not only do we want to make sure this gets passed, we want to make it pass without Congress being able to actually debate the details of the agreement, which is called the Fast Track Authority. Now, guess who he worked with? Well, both Republicans and Democrats, a lot of them took real issue with this. They didn't like it. This isn't cool. And he faced the worst opposition in his own party, in the Democrats, and he worked with the Republicans to get it passed. So it's a perfect example of how, if you still live in this idea that, like, you know, you're going to vote Democrat because you're against big business? Are you kidding me? For real.
Yeah.
It's delusional.
The whole thing is an illusion. You know, the notes that I wrote down for myself, and I'll just go through them really quickly because they were getting close to 11 o'clock. You know, is the fact that it's an illusion, and the illusion is created as our culture. It's a cultural illusion, and all of the, like you said, you know, Democrat, Republican, all of these terminologies and expectations that we have of what it means to be American or American exceptionalism is it's an illusion. It's the idea that this is what life is. This is what we're supposed to do, and how, you know, we are born and we're taught as we grow older that this is the best thing that's ever existed. Ever, and everything that existed before is shit, and this is the way to make everything better. This is the direction. This is what we need to do, and it's an illusion. And the thing is that, just going back to like growing sustainably, we don't need it. This is just creating more dependence. We don't need to be dependent upon our government. We don't need to be dependent on big business and these trades. It shouldn't freaking matter if Australia wants to send, you know, shoes to the United States. Like, we need to be making our own shoes with our own circumference, our own community. We need to make our own food. We need to make our own clothes. And every single human in America grew one crop in their backyard, just a small one, like one little thing of tomatoes, one little thing of potatoes, whatever it is. Like, we would never have to pay to eat again. We would just trade off. Like, it's all an illusion. We can completely take care of ourselves, and so it's just creating more dependency between. You know, it's one world community. It's saying that, you know, you can't make your own shirt. You need to buy your shirt through so-and-so, which means you have to work here, and you have to do this, and you have to do that. And now we're stuck. We're stuck following the same patterns that we've been following for decades now, because that's what they want. You know, it's for the benefit of the people who are at power, and that's you know, at the end of it. You know, the people who speak out against it, that don't want it to happen, that don't want these things to happen, that don't want the United States government to be in control, that don't want this cultural illusion to exist anymore, are now going to be called terrorists. You know, friends of mine that went and, like, fought against the Keystone Pipeline for environmental reasons were locked up and called terrorists. They were called fucking terrorists, and they're like they're like 19-year-old girls who just, like, care about trees, and they're locking them up and they're calling them terrorists, you know, and the word terrorist is crazy. We're going overseas and we're fighting things that we're doing doing to our own people. You know, it's just like you were saying, Matthew, that you know, America was created on terrorism. That's what we did. We revolted against our the country and said, "Fuck you. We want to do something better." And then we came and we did something better. That's the idea. That's fucking terrorism. That's what you do. You
rebellion. Maybe use the word rebellion there instead of terrorism. On rebellion.
That's what they refer terrorism to now, is rebellion. Rebellion is terrorism, and if you're a rebel, then you're a terrorist. If a hippie is a terrorist, then it's fucking stupid.
Well, and rebellion used to be patriotism.
Patriotism, hindsight, it's so blind, just to honorably follow something without questioning it,
Well, but then it all folds back to what Matt was saying about, or 45 minutes ago, is that they're coming and they made the ability to kill someone without trial. Okay, well that's because we're fighting a war or wars on many fronts with a faceless enemy. Yeah. So they're out there. They're all the bad guy. Who are they? Let's just take them out anyway.
Well, no, I think
that's what they think now.
We look forward to us getting into more about the fact that it seems pretty clear when you spend a little time on it that the enemy is actually the free-thinking public. We're the true enemy, and that's why these guys are so insecure. And ending maybe on a good note in that sense, I think when we see the government, who already has so much power, we have the greatest military in the world, biggest military, I'll put it that way. It's not even a long shot; it's beyond a long shot.
And I hear Putin's kicking some ISIS butt right now without us.
And yet we see this move towards taking away our rights, taking away our freedom of speech, taking away our civil liberties, and militarizing the police. And I look at that and I'm like, you know what? That's not so bad, because as bad as it is, really, and we need to fight that. That's a good sign. That means they don't feel that secure. I think they realize that there's a growing number of us, that we are not exceptional. We're just part of the ordinary folks who, see and aren't brainwashed. And you know what? We want it to change. The promises of materialism haven't, satisfied us to the point where we're willing to sell out our souls. So we're like, you know what? We want to do something that matters, damn it. And I think we want to spread that, and we want other people to know that, yeah, you're not alone. If you feel that way, yes. And, imagine if the news media covered those kind of stories. Imagine the power of that kind of propaganda if people went, wow, that's the majority, that's what we think, and instead we end up getting the view that the most extreme, ignorant people are the majority in this country, and that's not the case.
Yeah.
So, Kayleigh, something good. We have a few minutes left, and I want to be intentional about this. For something good, I would love for you to talk about, with all this other stuff going on, what has happened in your life recently that has just been a blessing. And can you talk to us a little bit about
that? Yeah, I can.
Not only did you become a mom, but you actually took the radical step of becoming a mom the natural way.
Yeah, it's there's a lot to say, and so I guess in the short amount of time, what I have to say at the end of it all, when it comes to the birth, is that I received a lot of hostility going into it. A lot of people didn't agree that I should do it. And it was the best thing I ever did. It was very empowering, and the crazy thing is that I walked away from it, and I was like, that's not so bad. That really wasn't that bad. Like, it's not my mind and the way that I perceived it, and people talked about it. It was going to be this horrific thing, and it wasn't. It really wasn't that bad, and it was a beautiful experience. And I felt like it was a way, one step at a time. I had to accept that I was having a son. I had to take the action, and I had to be a participant. I had to say, yes, I'm going to be a mother, I'm going to have a son, and yes, I want him in this world, and it doesn't matter how much it's going to hurt. And it never even hurt that bad. It was like the next thing I knew, he was here, and I was like, oh, like that was not as bad as I thought it was. And when he was here, it was an incredible experience, and it's been life-changing. I wasn't tired. I was just full of like this just joy and happiness, and I couldn't stop staring at him. And being a mother has changed my life, and it's changed my perspective on everything. And the biggest thing that I can say is that every time I see him and I watch him in the 7 weeks that he's grown up, is that I think of every person who has ever existed and will exist, and I think about how we all were babies. We all came from a vagina, and we all were babies.
That's
And we
not
all,
true, Kayleigh. That's impossible.
no one came from. You didn't come from a vagina, Bill? Where'd you come
Not everybody. Some of us were hatched. And most of those people that were hatched are in office now. So.
Okay.
Well, some people I think might have came from Mars. They came down in spaceships. But you came. Oh, let me bring this back up. We came out of something. We're all babies at some point, and for those that were from a C-section, we still came from a woman's womb, and we're all that. We're all innocent, and at some point we all pooped and peed ourselves, and it's just like, for all the moments for me myself that I've ever felt vulnerable or insecure, or even if I felt better than somebody on the other side, you know, and ego-driven, I look at it and I think about that really is, it's such a symbol of how incredibly equal we all are, and how we grow up, and all of this is what's taught to us, and all of this happens. It's beautiful. It's life. The creation of life is a beautiful thing. It's beautiful.
Absolutely, and that is a perfect note to end this on, because we are creating life, hopefully through this as well, and I'm very, very thankful for you to share some more. I hope in the future, will you share a little bit more about, maybe we could actually do a show where we talk about natural birth and why people would want to look into that for all the young moms out there?
I'll tell you, when she said that she was doing that, what I had in my mind was like totally different. I thought she was just gonna go out to a pond and have a baby, and she's like, no, there's like a nurse or whatever, and there's medicine and stuff just in case. Like I was like, oh, okay, good. So
I would really love to do a show on it, because there's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of fear mongering that happens when it comes to babies. Baby delivery is a business. It's not what it's supposed to be. It is a business. There's a lot of history on it.
and
A lot
the
of things that I
business is
think
booming.
And I think we should have a lot more education towards women before they are pregnant, because we don't teach them these things when they're younger, and you only find out when you are pregnant, and unless you have a good friend like me who happens to be a doula, you're not going to know any of this information.
What's a
A
doula?
lot of people find out after. It's a person who helps support you emotionally during your labor experience. So they're like your best friend while you're going through labor, and they stay up with you, and they walk with you, and massage you, and play with your hair, and all that stuff.
Everyone, the word of the day is doula.
Doula.
That's awesome. Well, I think that's a good note for us to wrap it up there. I want to thank you guys. Thanks all of you for watching. If you enjoyed this, if you got something out of it, leave a comment below. Tell us what resonated with you. And by the way, we know we are far from perfect. If we got something wrong, if you got something to share with us that will further the conversation, correct us if we got something wrong. Put it in the comments below. We look forward to seeing you again. Kayleigh, thank you so much. Bill, it was great. I'm glad we did this. And we will see you guys soon. I think we're going to try to do this
Tomorrow,
weekly, if not bi-weekly. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
good night, world.